Shalom, shalom. How's everybody? How's everybody doing this evening? It's good to see everybody. It's good to be here once again on Malak's Corner. And we're going to deal with part 3 of the lesson that we dealt with previously. And that was in reference to King Hezekiah, who was despised and rejected, the signs given by the prophet Isaiah. And so we're going to continue to cover all of that tonight. And before we do, I'd like to give a shout out to everyone in the chat, everyone that's tuning in tonight. All praise be to the Most High. Thanks for joining once again. And just so I know if my panel can hear me pretty good, Brother Joshua, can you hear me? All praises. And I see Shalom, how you doing?
All praise to the Most High. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All praises. And we have our beloved sister Earthhill and Angel, and we have our beloved sister Ahaviyah joining us once again. All praise be to the Most High. Thanks for everybody being on here. And again, thanks for everybody tuning in out there in social media. It's very important for us to, when we read the scriptures, for us to read them according to the historical accounts and not according to religion and doctrine, because religion and doctrine has caused us to lose sight, if we ever had sight, of the true meaning and the true precepts and the foundation of the word of the Almighty. Most of the time we hear buzzwords like Bible, we hear prophets' names like Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, or Yirmiyahu, Moses or Moshe, covenant, commandments. Automatically, our minds go to religion and doctrine. But what we're going to do here on Malak's Corner is we're going to ask you to remove yourself from religion and doctrine. Religion has been a tool to guide us all, guide us according to the path of those that created religion, created doctrine. And those religions and doctrines are such as Christianity, Islam, and there's a host of other ones out there. And even our people who realize that they are Yasharala, realize that they are Hebrew, they also lose themselves in the concepts of religion as they read the word of the Almighty and dive into the precepts. And it's all based upon their belief and doctrine. That's why you hear terms like church and camp and things of that nature, and they promote those things. And I'm not saying that to poke fun at any of our brothers and sisters, but that is just the truth. We've been doing the same thing, expecting different results. In the Christian world, in every hood, in every ghetto, there's a church on every corner. You can ride within 1 block, 1 square mile radius, and find 50 churches in the worst neighborhoods throughout the United States. It's the same thing in the Caribbean. It's the same thing in Al-Kibulan. Christianity has morphed itself and became houses of places where our people have lost their way and have not been able to hear the voice of the Almighty because they're listening to the voice of doctrine and religion. And so we're going to continue with our study, but I wanted to set the tone for that this evening. And before we jump into the scriptures, Brother Joshua, did you have anything you wanted to add to what I stated?
No, it's you pretty much summed it up, Elder, nicely and well said.
All praises, all praises. What about my sister Earthhill and Angel? Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Or our beloved sister Ahaviyah Barak, did you two have anything you wanted to add?
Much. Earth is her computer is stuck a little bit, so she'll be back
Okay.
shortly.
Okay. What about you? Did you have anything to add to that?
No, just everything that you said is on point with that, where our mindset, we've been so conditioned with religion that we do come and look at things from that perspective. And because of that, we end up missing the deeper meaning and understanding of things.
Hallelujah. All praises. And once again, I want to give shout out to the chat. I want to welcome everyone. We have our brother Issachar. He's on the line. We have our beloved sister Adaya Javier Yasharala. She's on the line. All praise. And there's others in here that's not actually signing in into the chat yet, but we want to give you a warm welcome and thank you for joining in. All praise be to the Most High. So as I stated before, we're going to start off right where we left off previously. And we left off, we were in the book of Isaiah, and we read chapters 36, 37, 38, and 39. I mean, we didn't read 38, 39, but we're going to read 38 and 39 today. And so get your scriptures ready, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into that. And we're going to start off right in Isaiah chapter 38. And so we're going to go and pick it up right at verse 1 in chapter 38. And my brother Joshua, can you start reading there for me?
Let me see if I can see it real quick. I can look it up. Hold on, just a minute.
Okay.
Elders, pardon me, man. Salakia.
No problem. No problem. No problem. I'm just getting used to navigating this thing myself. Yep. And verse 1. We're going to read the whole chapter, my brother, but I'm going to stop you along the way.
Yes, sir.
So
okay. This the book. Whenever you want me to start, Elder.
Go right ahead. Read verse 1.
This is the book of Isaiah chapter 38 from the top. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him and said unto him, Thus saith Yah, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his... Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. Read verse 2.
Verse 2. Then Hezekiah turned his face towards the wall and prayed unto Yah.
Verse 3.
And said, Remember now, O Yah, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore.
All right. So when the word of the prophet Isaiah came to King Hezekiah and told him basically, get your affairs in order, because you have an appointment with death. That goes right along with Isaiah 53 when it says, it pleased the Almighty to bruise him. But it wasn't for his faults, but he bore the grief of the people. Now, let's unpack that. The king has the responsibility of being a responsible party for the nation. For the king is either going to allow the nation to go into corruption and wickedness, or the king is going to cause the nation to go back into that which the Almighty declared for them to practice or them to walk within as a nation, according to the laws that govern them as a nation. We hear people say laws, statutes, and commandments, yes, but those are the same things as if you say the United States Constitution. You start talking about different laws within the government where it pertains to finance, which is under the IRS. If we're talking about Secretary of State laws, we're talking about commerce laws. We have different laws in the United States. But in reference to the word of the Almighty, his statutes, his judgments, and all of those things depict the same thing. As a matter of fact, that's where a lot of countries got their order according to their law to continue to move forward with how they regulate their nation. So the king, his responsibility was to keep the nation on point when it came to the the Almighty's laws. Now, yes, he had the high priest. High priest was there, but the king was responsible for when the nation went away and the king was not on his post. Who did the Almighty send the prophet to correct the nation? He sent the prophet to the king. And the prophet gave the words of the Almighty to the king in reference to whatever actions they were doing correctly or whatever actions they were doing on point in correction with the word of the Almighty. So when we look at our beloved King Hezekiah, he was a man that brought the nation back under the precepts of the Almighty. And when I say nation, at the time of his rulership, it was only one tribe because the nation had got split. It was in the tribe of Yehuda, which had also had the tribe of Levi and Benjamin absorbed within it. And then you had the other tribes, that were disconnected from Yehuda because of the sins of another king. And that king was King Shlomo or King Solomon. Because of the sins of King Solomon or Shlomo, the nation was split. And if you know anything about the historical record in reference to the kings, you know that the nation got split because of the acts of King Solomon. Now, what does that say? That validates that is the king is the sole individual that's responsible for the momentum of the nation. And so if the king did wickedly, who did the Almighty punish? A lot of times the whole nation. There's oftentimes the nations followed the footsteps of the king. That was what they were supposed to do. So let's jump right back into Isaiah, and we're going to pick it up at verse 4.
Verse 4. Then came the word of Yah to Isaiah, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith Yah, the power of David, thy father, I have heard thy prayer. I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years.
All right. So because of the prayer of King Hezekiah, which he uttered to the prophet Isaiah, the Almighty heard the prayer and he added to the life of King Hezekiah 15 years. And if you go read about the acts of King Hezekiah, there was no king like King Hezekiah, according to the word of the Almighty. He did not turn to the abominations. He actually ridded Yehuda of the abominable ways that they were doing, because they were doing all kind of things, And King Hezekiah, his father, was King Ahaz, his direct father. But if you notice in verse 5, it says, Go and say to Hezekiah, this is the Almighty instructing Isaiah, Thus saith the Almighty, the power and strength of David, thy father. So he calls King David the father of Hezekiah. You know why? Because there was a covenant made with King David in reference to the kingship. And everyone that came from the loins of King David, from his son, grandson, great-grandson, great-great-grandson, all the way on down, their father was all but no other than King David or King David. So he referenced King David because that is the covenant that the Almighty made with King David in reference to the kingship. Read verse 6.
Verse 6, And I will deliver thee in this city out of the hands of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city.
All right. So if you notice, he said, I'm going to deliver this city out of the hands of the king of Assyria. For those that followed this reading, these precepts about our historical record in the previous lessons, part 1 and part 2, we saw where the Assyrian army sent representatives to Yehuda to tell Yehuda, look, don't listen to your king Hezekiah and follow his power and strength, or his God, as they say, in reference to terminology. But he said, don't follow him and how he serves his power or his God. Before the king of Assyria has brought down every nation and their God unto their control. Now, you can go back and read that. You can reread Isaiah chapter 36 and 37. You'll see that. You can also reread, I think we were in 2 Kings. You can reread that all throughout the scriptures. You can read 2 Kings 18 and 19. They coincide with Isaiah 36 and 37, 38 and 39. That's why we're reading it. We have more than one witness to cover this particular scenario. So let's get back. Let's go back to, what was that, verse 7?
Yes, sir. And it says, and this shall be a sign unto thee from Yah, and that Yah will do this thing that he hath spoken. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down.
All right. So what we're reading about this sundial, which was their clock based upon the shadow of the sun, family. And there was a sign that was going to be given that the Almighty would actually do this thing. He said, if that shadow goes backward, 10 degrees, that's your sign that the Almighty is with you. Keep going.
Verse 9, the writing of Hezekiah, king of Judah, when he had been sick and was recovered of his sickness, I said, in the cutting off of my days, I shall go to the gates of the grave. I am deprived of the residue of my years.
All right. This is what King Hezekiah was saying. He was saying, I shall go to the gates of the grave. Remember, the Almighty said in Isaiah chapter 53 that he appointed him to death with the wicked. Who is the wicked? Even in Yahudah family, Yahudah had a lot of wickedness going on, but King Hezekiah didn't stand for it. King Hezekiah was upright. He stood for what thus saith the Almighty according to the nation, regardless of what other people were doing. And that's the point of being a leader, family. A leader sometimes has to be standalone. Forget about what everybody else is doing. When the Almighty give you a task as a leader, you fulfill that task. You continue to walk in the purpose that the Almighty laid upon you, especially when you make that connection with the I am in you, and you become one with the Almighty. Therefore, it's second nature. Go ahead, verse 11.
Verse 11, I said, I shall not see Yah, even Yah, in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world.
So King Hezekiah had got his mind together when the prophet Isaiah came to him and said, look, you're going to get your affairs together because you got an appointment with them. So King Hezekiah was getting his consciousness ready to understand what was happening. Verse 12.
Verse 12, mine age is departed and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. I have cut off like a weaver my life. He will cut me off with pining sickness. From day, evening, even to night, wilt thou make an end of me.
All right, said he was cut off from the land of the living. We're going to go read that. We're going to go back to Isaiah 53 because they like to take Isaiah 53 and point JC in the new book, point that to be referencing him. No, this was referencing what was happening with King Hezekiah at that time. Verse 13.
Verse 13, I reckon till morning that as a lion, so will he break all my bones. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me.
And for what reason or for what purpose, family? no other than it pleased the Almighty to bruise him. We're going to go read that. Verse 14.
Like a crane or a swallow, so did I chatter. I did mourn as a dove. My eyes fell with longing upward. Oh, yeah, I am, O Perez. Undertake for me.
Keep going.
What shall I say? In a question, he have both spoken unto me and himself have done it. I shall go softly all my years in the bitterness of my soul.
So King Hezekiah did not refute it. He accepted it. He took it on the chin. He took one for the team, as you can say. But that's why it says there was no king like King Hezekiah. Verse 16.
Oh yeah, by these things men live, and in all these things is the life of my spirit. So wilt thou recover me and make me to live?
Keep going.
Behold, for peace I had great bitterness, but thou hast in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption, for thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back.
All right, it says, behold, for peace I had great bitterness. That means for the peace of the nation, the king suffered. He bore his stripes for the nation. It says, but thou hast in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption. He added to his life 15 years. But thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back. Plus, King Hezekiah made a connection with the Almighty, with the great I am in him. Verse 18.
For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth. The living, he shall praise thee, as I do this day. The father to the children shall make known thy truth. The Yah was ready to save me, therefore we will sing my songs to the stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of Yah. For Isaiah had said, let them take a lump of figs and lay it for the plaster upon the boil, and he shall recover. Hezekiah also had said, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of Yah?
All right. So he had this boil, something that was making him sick, but the Almighty gave the remedy to the prophet Isaiah and caused King Hezekiah to be restored. Now, I know we're going to go to the next chapter, which is chapter 39, but before we go there, I want to reread Isaiah chapter 53 so that everyone is fully aware of what is being spoken as we read these chapters, chapter 38, 39. So let's go into Isaiah 53 really quick, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1.
This is Isaiah chapter.
Go ahead, brother. No, you good.
This is the book of Isaiah chapter 53 from the top. Who have believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yah revealed?
All right. Notice it says, who have believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Almighty revealed? Whose report? This is not about a futuristic report 2,000 years or 3,000 years from this point that Isaiah was standing on the ground. This is in reference to the report that Isaiah had in reference to the nation of the tribe of Yahudah during the time of King Ahaz, King Hezekiah, and the kings that's mentioned in Isaiah chapter 1. We'll read that too. So before we finish this, my brother, let's go back to we're gonna go to Isaiah chapter 1, and then we're gonna come back to 53 so that we know what time period that this prophecy was being given. So let's go into Isaiah chapter 1, and we only gonna read one verse, and then we're gonna go back to 53. Read verse 1.
This is the book of Isaiah from the top. Verse 1 in chapter 1. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah.
All right. So this is the first book that of the prophet Isaiah, and the first book and first chapter, first verse. So it says the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning who family? Yahudah, which was the only tribe still in the land at this point. All the other tribes was in captivity. It says, and Yerushalayim. So it told you who, which is Yahudah, and where in Jerusalem or Yerushalayim. And it's going to give you the time period of Isaiah's prophecy. It says, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Yahudah. So we know who it's talking about, which is the tribe of Yahudah, where it's talking about, Yerushalayim, and the time period, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah. This is the summation of what the prophecy of Isaiah was speaking concerning. So we cannot take this out of the time period and place it into another time period, as they do in Christianity or in those that want to place what was spoken in the New Testament to be referencing JC. No, this is a total different time period. Okay. So now let's go right on back. Let's go back to Isaiah 53, and we're going to pick it up where we left off. And we just restart. Verse, what was that? Verse 2 or verse?
Yeah, verse 2.
Okay.
Verse 2. For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of the dry ground. He have no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him.
All right, this is Isaiah speaking, y'all. This is not talking about a futuristic people looking for somebody. This is the message of the prophet Isaiah to the tribe of Yahudah during the time of King Hezekiah family. We just read what it said in chapter 1 about the location, who it was talking about, and the time period. That's why he says, for he shall grow up before him a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He have no form of comeliness, and we. It didn't say, and they in the future. It said, we shall see him. There is no beauty that we should desire him. Why didn't Yahudah desire the beauty of King Hezekiah? In reference to his beauty is talking about his righteousness, because he stood on the principles of Yah. He didn't argue with the king of Assyria. He stood on the principles, and when they sent the messengers to Yahudah to tell them not to listen to King Hezekiah, Hezekiah fell out on his face, went to the prophet, and the prophet went to the Almighty, and the Almighty gave him a sign that he was going to be with him. Verse 3.
He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, a acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not.
All right, this is all past tense, family. This is not future tense. It says he is despised. It didn't say he will be despised or he will be rejected of men. He says he is despised and rejected of men. So this couldn't be talking about a future time from this time. This was talking about the time at hand in reference to the time period that was spoken of in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. It says, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. We just read that in Isaiah 38, how he had a sorrow that he had to bear, right? So that, so that the others could live in reference to, I forgot what it, we will go back and read it, but this is how he was acquainted with grief. We read that. It says, and he hid as it were, we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised and we esteemed him not. Who despised King Hezekiah? The Assyrian messengers that the Assyrian king sent to Yahudah. And you already know a lot of the Yahudim, or those of Yahudah, was listening to these words that they spoke in reference to King Hezekiah. They saw all these other nations that the Assyrian army destroyed, and you know Yahudah was like, look, Hezekiah, this king of Assyria is for real. Verse 4.
Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted.
We just read
But
how he was smitten and afflicted. We read in 38 how it said it pleased the when he sent Isaiah, he said, get your affairs together, King Hezekiah, because you're about to die. Verse 5.
but he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed.
All right. Again, this is speaking in past tense. That's why we was reading all of that in Isaiah 36, 37, and 38. Now we at Isaiah 53 because all of this already occurred, family. Look at the number sequence. We read 36, 37 last week. Tonight we started at 38. We're seeing this grief that King Hezekiah was going through. We're going to read 39. But right now we in 53, which is way beyond chapters 38 and 39. But Isaiah is bringing back Yahudah to remembrance of what the Almighty did through King Hezekiah for them. Verse 6.
All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and Yah have laid on him the iniquity of us all.
So all the wickedness that was going on in Yahudah, that's why it pleased the Almighty to bruise him to save the rest of the nation. The rest of Yahudah. Yahudah would represent the nation at that time. The rest of Yasharallah was already in captivity with the Syrian Empire under the Assyrian captivity already. Verse 7.
He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth.
All right, so he was compared to a lamb, meaning that this guilt was put on Hezekiah, okay, at that current time. He was the king, family. Remember, kings bear the responsibility of the nation. They had a king at that time, and he bore the responsibility of the nation. So it pleased the Almighty to bruise him for the nation, for the tribe of Yahudah, for their restoration eventually. Verse 8.
He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off of the land of the living, for the transgressions of my people was he stricken.
Didn't the Almighty send Isaiah to King Hezekiah to tell him to get his affairs together because he was going to die? Is that not being cut off from the land of the living? Absolutely, family. So when we start reading the word of the Almighty from a historical point of view, this is not about religion, what we're reading right now. This is not about doctrine, what we're reading right now. This is historical facts about our heritage as a nation. Verse 9.
And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth.
So the Almighty appointed him to fall at that time. And even though the Almighty, we're going to read later, even though the Almighty added to his life 15 years, after that 15-year period, he was going to still pass away prior to Yahudah going into captivity to, not to the Assyrians, because the Almighty defeated the Assyrians for Yahudah, but they went into Babylon because Babylon took over and conquered the Assyrian Empire. And therefore, the old Assyrian Empire was absorbed by the Babylonian Empire. But yes, so it says, and he had made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Because the Almighty already knew. He knew. Your people gonna go and do all this wickedness. Okay? So you still got an appointment. He just extended his life. Verse 10.
Yet it pleased Yah to bruise him. He had put him to grief when thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. He shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yah shall prosper in his hand.
So he prolonged his days, right? That's when he added to his life 15 years, family. He still was going to be appointed to his death sentence, but he added 15 years to him because of the prayer that he sent up by way of the prophet Isaiah, and he spoke to the Almighty concerning. Verse 11.
He shall see of the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities.
So as a king, family, the king bear the iniquity of the nation. That's all the kings of Yahudah, all the kings of Yasharallah. And the only kingship that was substantiated by the Almighty was the kings of Yahudah. For you know, when the nation was split, the other tribes picked their king of Ephraim, but they were not, that wasn't something that was co-signed by the Almighty. They did that on their own prior to going into captivity. Verse 12.
Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors.
All right. So he made intercession for the transgressors because of the kind of man that King Hezekiah was. This was not talking about some event thousands of years later, as they read about in the New Testament. This wasn't and had nothing to do with that. But they make that fit, family. And we just, we're gonna let the truth be told, even on the Malak's corner, in reference to this. Okay, as we go through the scriptures, again, not according to doctrine, not according to religion, but according to what thus saith the Almighty. And before I continue, family, before we keep going, Earth, Hill, and Angel, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I'm enjoying the lesson. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, I'm enjoying the lesson, taking care of the chat, but this is so profound because, with us who came out of Christianity, we would hear these quotes all the time, for he was wounded for our transgression and bruised for our iniquities. And the and it goes on, and they reference it to JC, and it has nothing to do with it. Also, um, the heartbreaking part that you just mentioned, that it was never ordained for there to be a split, a southern kingdom or a northern kingdom, just Yasharal. But it just shows even who we are today. We love to do our own thing against the will of Yah, just in straight rebellion. And why were we having both of these kings? Just because of ego and um, just witchcraft. Witchcraft meaning a heart turned away from Yah, not wanting to follow, full instruction. So thank you for that moment.
Hallelujah. All praise. What about you, brother Joshua?
Man, I just want to give shouts out to the chat. You know what I'm saying? That's why I was, man, shouts out to the chat who's chimed in. You know what I'm saying? All praise to the Most High and Him alone. Elder, you touched a real good base on that topic of on we started with, you know what I'm saying, chapter 38, and we're gonna finish 39. I know we're gonna finish, y'all willing. But it's funny, you know what I'm saying, they just bypass it. They bypass that part where it's, talk about past tense, and it's talking about anything referencing the future. It just talks about, he was. So that tells that's in a past tense form. So like I said, people are gonna have their own opinion. At the end of the day, you know what I'm saying. It doesn't even reference this dude that they're, what they, profess it to be. It doesn't profess to be that dude. We just read Isaiah, 1. They try to, bypass that too. You know what I'm saying, about, who was, in control at that time. And it just matches up. It lines up. It doesn't line up, you know what I'm saying, speaking, you know what I'm saying, like how you said, 1,000 years later, or however much time later. Speaking of a current event that already happened.
Absolutely. So now, what about you, beloved Javi Abarak? Do you have anything you want to add?
Yes. I was just just following along and going through Isaiah 53, seeing that at the end it says, he shall see his seed. So that already ruled out JC, because JC has no seed.
Right.
Absolutely. Great point.
So they missed, like in picking and choosing, they're only picking and choosing parts of the precept, but they're not really taking the full thing in context. And even as Brother Joshua mentioned, they said we means that they're talking about themselves at the present time, not they, somebody to come.
Absolutely. All praises. And when we talk about Emmanuel, family, Emmanuel has a meaning. Emmanuel is a meaning. And what is that meaning? Yah with us. Right? That's the meaning. So when you hear that name, Emmanuel, hear Yah with us. So he was with the tribe of Yahudah during the time of Jotham, King Hazael, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. He was with Yahudah during that time. That's why Yahudah did not go into captivity. And so during the rulership of righteous kings, the Almighty made his arm clear. He made his connection known. He showed forth who he was with, because the kingship that was in place at that time was righteous. But we know that Yahudah did a lot of abominable things, which is why after King Hezekiah and a few kings after him, Yahudah went in captivity. You know, so you can continue to read that in the book of Isaiah or in the book of Chronicles or the book of Kings. There is that all that legacy is in there as well in 3 different witnesses. You can read it in Isaiah, you can read it in Chronicles, and you can read it in Kings. Hallelujah. So yes. So we're gonna go back in there. We just finished reading Isaiah 53. Now we're gonna go, now we're gonna go back into Isaiah and we're gonna read
39.
39. We'll go to Isaiah chapter 39.
I got you, Elder.
Hallelujah.
Okay, this is the Babylon captivity foretold, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it says, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 39 from the top. At the time of Merodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that he had been sick and was recovered.
All right. So we done read about how King Hezekiah was sick and how the Almighty was going to heal him, right? But Babylon is now emerging because the Almighty caused the Assyrian Empire to fall, and Babylon has risen up and took its place. And now Babylon is the chief rulership on the earth at this current time. Let's read verse 2.
Verse 2, and Hezekiah was glad of them and showed them the house of his precious things, the silver and the gold and the spices and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasure. There was nothing in his house nor in all the dominion that Hezekiah showed them not.
Mm-hmm.
Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah and said unto him, what said these men, and from whence came they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, they were come from a far country unto me, even from Babylon. Then said he, what have they seen in thy house? And Hezekiah answered, all that in mine house have they seen. There's nothing among my treasures that I have not shown them. Then said Isaiah to Hezekiah, hear the word of Yah of hosts. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house and that which thy fathers have laid up, in which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith Yah.
All right. I want to show y'all something. So you know how earlier we talked about it was what Isaiah spoke when it says he was despised and rejected and smitten of men. It was all in past tense. When the Almighty speaks of something of future, He's going to let you know. Verse 6 says it. It says, behold, the days come. When it say the days come, that means that's a future. So when Isaiah was speaking to Hezekiah, King Hezekiah at this point, it's about a future in reference to Yahudah. It says, behold, the days come that all that is in thine house and that which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Almighty. So that was, he was letting him know in the future, Hezekiah, this is what's going to happen. Read verse 7.
And of thy sons, they shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be inch in the palace of king of Babylon.
All
Then
right. So he said, look, even your sons, King Hezekiah, that come from your loins, they are going to be taken unto Babylon. Okay. They are going to be made eunuchs, meaning they're going to cut off their private parts. Right? Read verse 8.
Then said Hezekiah to Isaiah, good is the word of Yah which thou hast spoken. He said, moreover, for there shall be peace and truth in my days.
Hallelujah. So Hezekiah took his stripes well. He did not refute or argue with what thus saith the Almighty, family. That's one thing that he did not do. And so, again, reading the book of Isaiah, you would be you'll see all these things that was occurring, happening during the time of King Hezekiah. As a matter of fact, we're going to back up a little bit, family. We're going to go into Isaiah chapter 1, and we're going to look at the prophecy that Isaiah gave to King Ahaz, who was King Hezekiah's father. Let's go right into that. Let's go into Isaiah chapter 7.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 7, from the top.
We're gonna start it. Yeah, we're gonna read 1 through 17. We're gonna read it 1 through 17. Yep, at the top.
And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Ezra, king of Judah, and Rezin, and the king of Syria, Pekah, the son of Ramallah, Lana, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it.
All right, so y'all remember the nation was split. And I remember even Earth, Hill, and Angel, she spoke about the nation being split and how sad that was. The nation was split, okay? And when the prophet Isaiah was coming at this point in time, it was during the time of King Ahaz, which is Hezekiah's father. This is before Hezekiah was even born. It says, and it came to pass in the days of Uzziah, in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, right? So Ahaz's father was Jotham, and they were both kings. And then Jotham's father was Uzziah. We read this all in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. That's why I went there. It says, King of Yahudah. Now, during this particular time, during King Ahaz's reign, Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Rimlah, king of Yasharallah, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail. What does this mean? Syria and the other tribes besides Yahudah were confederate, and the other tribes despised Yahudah. So they took up with them Syria and went to attack Yahudah in Jerusalem to besiege it. Their own brothers by tribe did that, family. And that king that they mentioned, Pekah, the son of Rimlah, that was the king that Yasharallah appointed out of Ephraim to be their king. But that was not the kingship that the Almighty set up through King Dawid, which was in Yahudah. Read verse 2.
And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim, and his heart was moved in the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind.
All right, so we see that so it said it was told to the house of Dawid or David, which was Yahudah in Jerusalem. It was told to them that Syria was friends or confederate with Ephraim. Again, Ephraim was the tribe in Yasharala that they came up and appointed their kings out of. Not being co-signed by the Almighty, but something they did of themselves. How many times do we see people doing something of themselves today? We see it all the time. We see all these different kinds of self-appointments today. But when there is one that the Almighty appoint, his spirit, his connection will shadow upon, will hover upon in all their walks of life. Not that they may not make mistakes, but he will overshadow them. Because remember, he called King David a man after his own heart. And we know King David made mistakes, but he was upright for the most part. He had his flaws, but he was upright. Let's keep going. Verse 3.
Then saith Yah unto Isaiah, Go forth now and meet Ahaz, thou and Shirjahab, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller field.
All right, so let me break this down real quick. It says, so the Almighty sent Isaiah to go and talk to King Ahaz. Again, Hezekiah wasn't even born yet. And he said, now go and meet Ahaz, thou and Sherubajah, which was his assistant or something like that. That's his son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool. Now, conduit, family, you know what a conduit is? That's a pipe. It says, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool. What is that? They had water aqueducts, family. They had a piping system in Jerusalem, right? Filtering water, bringing water to the nation, to that tribe. Just so y'all know, that's what that was. Verse 4.
And said unto him, Take heed and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the two tails of these smoking firebraids, for the fierce anger of Rezin and Syria, and of the son of Reemiah.
Mm-hmm.
Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Reemiah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us
All
go.
right, let's pause for a second. So he said, look, King Hezekiah, this is the message that, not Hezekiah, King Ahaz, which Isaiah is sent to King Ahaz to speak the word of the Almighty, saying, look, don't worry about Syria. Don't worry about your brothers that have separated, that you've been separated from in Yasharala, who appointed their kings out of Ephraim. Don't you worry about that. Guess why? Because Yah is going to be with Yahudah. Again, what does Emmanuel mean? Yah with
us.
Verse 5.
Because
you read verse 5. Did you read that?
I'll read it again. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Reemiah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah and vex it. Let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabil.
All right, so Syria and Yasharala was going to come against Yahudah, and they was going to appoint a new king. That was their whole purpose, right? Now let's see what thus saith the Almighty. Read verse 7.
Thus saith Yah, the power, it shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass.
All right, say, look, all that stuff that they talking about, it shall not stand, and it will not come to pass. So he sent Isaiah to tell King Ahaz, don't you worry about this mess. Verse 8.
For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is risen. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people.
It said 65 years Ephraim shall be broken. What's a score, family? 20 years. 60 is 60 plus 5. 65 years. And Ephraim, that means the rest of Yasharallah, they're going to be going into captivity. Don't worry about them. Verse 9.
And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Elias' son. If ye will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. Moreover, Yah spake again unto Ahaz, saying, ask thee a sign of Yah, thy power. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above.
All right, so the Almighty revealed to King Ahaz through the mouth of the prophet Isaiah, look, ask the Almighty for a sign, and I'm going to show you a sign to show you Emmanuel, meaning Yah's with us, right? Read verse 12.
But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither I will tempt the Yah. And he said,
Right. He said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Almighty. Go ahead.
And he said, hear ye now, O house of David, is it a small thing from you to weary men, but will ye weary my God also?
He said, you weary men, Yahudah, you don't want to ask me of a sign, but you're going to go and seek soothsayers and all kind of divinations and all kind of stuff, but you don't want to ask me? Verse 14.
Therefore, Yah himself shall give you a sign. Behold,
he said, look. He said, Yah himself shall give you a sign. Now, who is the you? It's no one other but King Ahaz. This sign was for King Ahaz that we about to read. And I'm making that point clear before we read it, because people use this right here also to connect to someone that they wrote about called JC in the New Testament. No, this sign was given to King Ahaz. This sign wasn't given to nobody else. This was an individual sign that we just so happened to read about, so that you know who it's talking about. Read that, start at verse 14 again. We start at the top.
Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
All right. So he gonna bear, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call him Emmanuel. Now, family, we're gonna paint this. You got to have a connection with the I am and you to understand this, okay? It says, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. And Emmanuel means what? Yah with who? Us. It's not Yah with him. It's Yah with us. So, in two aspects, there is a particular virgin that was going to bear a son. Now, we're going to read some of this. King Ahaz laid with a fair maiden, which never had sex in it before, and she conceived. And when she conceived, guess who his son was? Hezekiah. But the reason why his name was Hezekiah, but in the, how do you call it, when they were extrapolating the meaning of words or transliterating these meanings, the title of what was upon him was Emmanuel. Just like the title was upon Yahudah is Emmanuel. Just like the title of what is upon Yasharallah, when it's brought back under the covenant, is Emmanuel. It's not Yah with Yasharallah when they were under a covenant to the Almighty. Was not the Almighty under covenant to Yahudah? Was not the Almighty under covenant with even the king's seed, meaning the seed of Dawid? Yes, right. That's Emmanuel, family.
Right.
It means Yah with us. The great I am that I am with us. Now let's read verse 15. Now we're getting into an individual point. Read verse 15.
Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good.
That means that he was learning of the precepts of the Almighty, so he knew what to choose and not choose evil. That's why it says there was no king likened unto King Hezekiah. There wasn't nobody else like him. Now, there was other kings that were, some of them were good, and they had their own positioning, but there were no other kings like King Hezekiah. Verse 16.
For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings.
All right. So before this child is born, the land gonna be forsaken of both her kings. Look, and he talking about Ephraim concerning Yasharallah, and even under King Ahaz, he wasn't the most upright king, but there was a message that was given to King Ahaz in reference to a child that he was going to have of a virgin. Not that a virgin was going to conceive without laying with a man, but prior to her laying with a man, she was a virgin. Verse 17.
Yah shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's houses or days that have not come from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria.
Now remember, we talked about Assyria before, but it said that he said that the Almighty shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house. He's talking to King Ahaz, family. Days that have not seen come from the day that Ephraim departed from Yahudah. Why does it say that? Ephraim was a tribe within Yasharallah. Yahudah was the king tribe over the nation. So Ephraim departed from the rulership that the Almighty designated by covenant through Yahudah and through the seed of King Dawid. Verse 18.
And it shall come to pass in that day that Yah shall hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost part of the rivers of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria.
All right, so basically the Almighty is going to destroy the Assyrian Empire eventually, okay? But during the time of King Ahaz, Assyria was not even up yet. It was the Syrian Empire that Yasharallah was confederate with to go against Yahudah. Again, family, what we're discussing right now have no bearing on religion, beliefism, or doctrine. This is all historical points of reference concerning the nation of Yasharallah and the tribe of Yahudah. During the time of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. That's what we're talking about. This is historical record. So we got to stop reading the word as though from a religious, doctrinal point of view, because that's how we get lost. That's how it gets corrupted. Now, let's, for the sake of time, we're going to go right into Isaiah chapter 8. We're gonna go right into Isaiah chapter 8, and we're gonna pick it up at verse 1, and we're gonna read 1 through 14. So we're gonna go to Isaiah chapter 8, and we're gonna read verse 1 through 14.
This is the book of Isaiah chapter 8 from the top. Moreover, Yah said unto me, take thee a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shala Hazbaz.
You did good. Keep going.
And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah.
Yeah. So this is who Isaiah the prophet took with him. Okay. Read verse 3.
And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Then said Yah to me, call his name Mahar Shalal Hazabaz.
All right. So now when he said, and he went unto the prophetess. This is Isaiah. It didn't say he went into the prophetess. So let's not mistake that to say that Isaiah had relations with this prophetess. No, that's not what it's saying. He went unto the house of this prophetess, not into her. But when he went and he found her, she conceived and bare a son. Then said the Almighty to her, called his name Maharashala Hashabaz, which when you go look at the interpretation, it's talking about destruction coming upon a particular area. I can't recall the definition completely, but if you take that and you research that, that's what it would be. So let's pick it up at verse 4.
Verse 4, for before a child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. Yah spake also unto me again, saying, for as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly and rejoice in Risen and Remaliah's son.
Okay, so what it's saying is the Almighty spake also unto me, saying again, for as much as this people, who he's speaking of, the nation, Yasharala, refuseth the waters of Shiloah. So they refuse to be fed of the nutrients of the Almighty, the righteousness that goeth softly, and rejoice in Risen and Remlah's son. Instead of y'all want to partake with the righteousness of the Almighty, y'all want to choose your own folly. Y'all want to put your trust in this man. Verse 7.
Verse 7, of the increase of his government, Salakia.
Verse 7. Yeah,
verse 7. It says, now therefore, behold, Yah bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the net, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel.
So he's look, he said, look at this. I want y'all to pay attention to what it said, y'all. It said, and he shall pass through Yahudah. Who gonna pass through Yahudah? Yahudah, the king of Assyria. We read about that during the time period of King Ahaz. It says, he shall overflow and go over. Now, what we read now, family, is before King Hezekiah. Before, this is what's being interpreted. It says he shall go, he shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings, and shall feel the breath of the land. O Emmanuel. So when you read Emmanuel here, who is this talking about? It's talking about who Yah is with. Okay? He was with Yahudah. That's why he's speaking to Yahudah. When they say, oh, Emmanuel, that's in place of Yahudah. Meaning the Almighty with us. Verse 9.
Verse 9, it says, associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, all ye of far countries, grid yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Grid yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Emmanuel, right?
That's Emmanuel, right? Emmanuel is that. It says, yeah, the Almighty with us, not the Almighty with him, not the Almighty with that person, the Almighty with us. Who is the us? Who's the us, family? At this time, it was Yahudah. And when the Almighty created the nation of Yasharallah, it was the whole nation under one covenant. Verse 11.
Verse 11, for Yah spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, say ye.
All right, he said he instructed Isaiah not to walk in the way of his own people, which is wickedness. That's why he sent Isaiah the prophet to correct. Okay, verse 12.
Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say, a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid.
All right, he said, look, say ye not a confederacy, meaning say ye not a friendship to all them to whom this people shall say. Meaning that all these connections that Yasharallah or even Yahudah is trying to be confederate with all these different nations, don't y'all need to turn y'all back from that. Stop trying to be confederate with other nations. It's just like today. Why are we trying to always adapt to our captors? That's what we're doing. That's why we can't see the Almighty in us. That's why we can't recognize the great I am that I am in us. That's what we always searching on the exterior for the Almighty and not internal. The salvation is not external, family. It's internal. The Almighty placed salvation in you. That's why Emmanuel is the definition. The Almighty with us. How can you have Emmanuel when you steady looking externally for salvation and not internal? Verse 13.
Sanctify Yah of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread.
There you go right there. It says sanctify the Almighty of hosts himself. Sanctify means set him apart where? Set him apart in you. And let him be what? Your fear. That's how you know he in you. And let him be your dread in you. Your defense. Verse 14.
And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense, to both the houses of Israel, for a gin, and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
All right, so This is to all the carnal, terrestrial-minded men in Yasharallah and in Yahudah. It says, and he shall be a sanctuary. Who? The Almighty shall be a sanctuary, Emmanuel, but for a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Yasharallah. Remember, they were divided into two nations. For a jinn, right, which is like a demon when they speak about jinns in the Arabic world.
Yeah.
And for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. That Almighty is saying, look, everybody that walk carnally, terrestrially, I'm going to destroy. Everybody that see the I am in them, see Emmanuel and live that way. That's what he's saying. Read verse 15.
And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken.
Even into this day, family, although this was spoken in that time for those people, the same thing happening to us today. A stumbling block is before us. We choosing a idol for salvation, no matter what y'all call the idol, instead of choosing the I am in you. Read verse 16.
Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples.
It says, bind up the law, bind up the testimony, and seal the law among my disciples. Who are the disciples of Yah? Those that see Yah in them. Those that walk according to the nature of I am, the celestial nature from within. So now let's keep going, family. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 9. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 9. And we're gonna read that chapter. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 9, and we're gonna pick it up at verse 1. Isaiah 9 and verse 1.
All right, it says this is the book of Isaiah chapter 9 from the top. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Nephtali, my fault, and afterward did more grievously afflicted her by the way of the sea beyond Jordan in Galilee of the nations. The people that walk in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them have the light shine.
All right. So this is what that means on a higher level, family. As we walk in these terrestrial bodies, right? These carnal bodies. This is the light that we see is internal. The light that we see is the Almighty in us, the celestial power, the Emmanuel. When we see that, we become Emmanuel. We become the Almighty with us. Verse 3.
Thou, Salakia, thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according to the joy in harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil.
Mm-hmm.
For thou hast broken the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire.
Mm-hmm.
Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall, this is funny, shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
All right, now check this out, family. See, when you start to this, we know the Christianity has taken this and said, hey, this is talking about JC. It says, for unto us a child is born. We're reading this in the book of Isaiah. Let me remind y'all, we were reading in Isaiah chapter 1. It told you where it was talking about, who it was talking about, and the time period it was talking about. Now notice it say, for unto us a child is born. It didn't say in the future a child was going to be born. It says unto, Isaiah saying this.
Right.
For unto us a child is born.
Right.
Why did Isaiah say that? Because he told King Ahaz to ask the Almighty for a sign, and he was going to reveal it. Although King Ahaz didn't want to ask for a sign, he revealed it anyway. He said, a virgin shall conceive. And guess what? That virgin, as I said, wasn't talking about immaculate conception. It was just that this was a fair maiden, meaning that they were a virgin before laying with any man. Now, when King Ahaz laid with a woman and he bore Hezekiah, she bore Hezekiah, she was a virgin. She bore Hezekiah. It says, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, right? And his name shall be called Wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. Counselor, right? The mighty God, the everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. Why, family? It's nothing strange about this. When we read about Moshe and the Rome, did not the Almighty say to Moshe that the Moshe was going to be a spokesman, but to Aaron, he was going to be in the place of God? You know what I'm talking about, Joshua? When the Almighty told Moshe that Aaron was going to be his spokesman, but
Right.
he was going to be in the place of God to him.
Right.
Remember that, right?
You're talking about the priesthood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He said
yeah,
he was in the place of God before him. This is when they was in Egypt.
Right.
Right.
Let my people go.
Right. So it's no. So here's why y'all always hear me say, it's the Almighty in you. If you are the son of the Almighty, who are you? Can you be anything but who you a son of? And this is not blasphemy. You can, that's like your earthly father. You cannot walk on this earth without being of your earthly father.
Right. You're the seed of it.
Right. So if you are the seed that the Almighty called forth as a nation, and you are his son, as it declared, what and who are you? See, this is the secret that they don't want to be unleashed. And Yasharala, if you hear these words today, that's the secret being revealed. Yah in you, Emmanuel, Yah with us. If he's with us, he's in you, he's all around you. Why is it so hard for us to pick that up? Because religious doctrine has taken your place away from you. They got you chasing your tail for a savior when the nation itself is a savior.
Right.
Okay. When your salvation is within you, and when you tap into the salvation in you, what do you become? The one who saved himself. Verse 7.
Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of Yah of hosts will perform this.
Hallelujah. So again, all of this was talking about a time period. Notice it says, Again, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. Is that talking about future, or was that talking about the present tense of when it was speaking of? Wasn't talking about future, family. Verse 8.
Yah sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lightened upon Israel, and all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart. Can I read that again? I just want to point something out. I just want to point something out, because this is what a lot of our people do. I promise. Okay, let me just read this one more time. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hew stones. The sycamore are cut down, but we will change them into cedars.
Mm-hmm. Great point, brother. We do that all the time. When the Almighty takes something away, what we say, we gonna build it back up.
Make it more better.
I remember when the levees broke. They said they gonna go back and rebuild.
Yeah. With the Katrina, right.
When the towers fell in New York, what they say? We're gonna go back and
build it again, make it better.
Right. It ain't nothing new under the sun, family. They keep on doing the same thing. And if you watch the nature of the terrestrial, you can follow the trail of all things that lead to destruction. Likewise, if you follow and become the nature of I am, then the pathway to the tree of life is within. Verse 11.
Verse 11. Therefore, Yah shall set up the adversities of risen against him and join his enemies together, the Syrians before, and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still.
Mm-hmm. So see, again, family, when we was reading about this one that's gonna be born, and it had nothing to do with the future that they talk about in the new book. It had everything to do with the time period that they was on. They was dealing with the Syrians and the Philistines and the Assyrians. All of those were nations that they were dealing with at that time.
Historical facts, right?
Yeah, we're talking about no churches, we're talking about religion, wasn't talking about doctrine. It was talking about nation affiliation.
Right. At that time.
At that particular time. Verse 13.
For the people turn not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek Yah of hosts.
All right, so they don't turn to the one that correct them, but they turn to those that speak smooth words that they feel is right. You know what? Unfortunately, people still the same today. Our people.
Right, that makes them feel good. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Verse 14.
Therefore, Yah will cut off from Israel's head and tail, branch and rush in one day. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail.
Mm-hmm.
For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led to them are destroyed.
Same thing today, family. The teachers of our people cause our people to err and lead them to destruction. To the point, when you hear truth, you run from it. when you hear truth, you take it for a lie. But when you hear the lie, it sounds good to you. You want that to be true.
Yeah.
You don't want to take no responsibility. You don't want to pick up the baton that's in your hand and do what you need to do to obtain salvation. Instead, you want to pray externally for somebody else to get you salvation. Verse 17.
Verse 17, therefore Yah shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone in the and an hypocrite, worse, oh terrible, hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out.
Is it not the same today? Are we not still doing the same thing today? Although this message for the people back at that time, but guess what? The nature of our people is still the same. It shows its ugly head each and every day. That's why we steady doing the same thing, expecting different results. Looking for love in all the wrong places. Looking for salvation externally, but salvation is internally. Calling yourself getting closer to the Almighty externally when you're walking away from where he is internally.
Right.
Verse 18.
And just to, I just wanted to, collaborate on that, like it's just reiterating. Verse 17 was just reiterating 12 about him taking his hand out. He's not playing. The Most High is not playing. Verse 18. For wickedness burneth as the fire, it shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of Yah of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother. He shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, that they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own army. Oh, Manasseh, Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. So it's talking about, their brothers. What is that? The northern kingdom? Isn't that Ephraim?
Yeah.
Northern kingdom. All right.
That's talking about the split. The nation is split.
Right. From the southern.
They picked their kings of Ephraim.
Right. They plotted on them.
Yeah, and so they had Ephraim as their king, and we had Yahudah as our king, and Yahudah and the seed of King Dawid was the king of Yahudah, which was Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, and a host of other kings.
Right.
But in Ephraim, they had those other kings that they self-appointed, which people, like a lot of our people do today, as Ephraim is self-appointed, and not which Yah appoints. Yah does not require our agreement with who he appoints. Did y'all know that? He don't need our co-signing about who he shall appoint over his nation.
Right.
But when you appoint based upon men, then you need a co-signer. You need everybody else to agree.
Right. The Most High don't need that.
The Most High don't need that.
He don't need
that. So that's Emmanuel, fella. Let's go to one last scripture. We're going to read this. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles chapter 29. 2 Chronicles chapter 29. Second
Chronicles
chapter 29.
Just from the top, right?
And yep, it's going to be from the top. It's going to be talking about King Hezekiah. It's from the top.
Okay. This is the book of 2 Chronicles chapter 29 from the top. Hezekiah began to reign. when he was 5 and 25. You just said it earlier. You talking about he was 25. You know what I'm saying? That was 25 years or something like that. I think it was in Isaiah, if I'm not mistaken. It was in Isaiah. We read about that. 3 scores. Remember 3? Oh, no, that's 65. Salakia.
Yeah, that was sick. That was talking about the destruction of Yasharala and under Ephraim.
Right. The captivity. Right. That was gonna take place. Right. Salakia.
Mm-hmm.
Hezekiah began to reign when he was 5 and 20 years old, and he reigned 9 and 20 years in Jerusalem. And his mother name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yah, according to all that David, his father, had done.
All right, so this Abijah, she was the virgin that Hezekiah went in and had Hezekiah with. Verse 3.
He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of Yah and repaired them.
So he opened up the doors. I want y'all to listen to how King Hezekiah had already, he was learned in what to do righteously and refuse the evil. We read about that. Keep going.
Very important point right here. And he brought in the priests and the Levites and gathered them together into the east street and said unto them, hear me ye, Levites, sanctify now yourselves and sanctify the house of Yah, your power, your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place.
All right, so this is King Hezekiah cleaning up the priesthood, family. That's what a righteous king does. Verse 6.
And it says, for our fathers have trespassed and done that which was evil in the eyes of Yah, our power, and have forsaken him and have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord and turned their backs. Also, they no go ahead, elder.
No, you right. Keep going. Read verse 7.
Okay. Also, they have shut up the doors of the porch and put out the lamps and have not burnt incense nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto God of Israel.
So they hadn't done all the things that they were supposed to be doing. But guess what? King Hezekiah was going to cause the priesthood to come back on task with their order of administration given by the Almighty. Verse 8.
Wherefore the wrath of Yah was upon Judah and Jerusalem, and have delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as ye see with your eyes. For lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with Yah, God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My sons, be not now neglect you. For the Lord hath chosen you to stand before him and serve him, and that ye should minister unto him and burn incense.
This is what King Hezekiah was telling the new priest that he was bringing back forward, that they need to get their act together. Verse 12.
Then the Levites arose, Mahath, the son of Amasiah, and Joel, the son of Azariah, of the sons of the Kohathites, and the sons of Merari, Kish, the son of Abdi, and Azariah, the son of Jehalillah, and of the Gershonites, Joah, and son of Jemah, and Ed and Eden, the son of Joha, and of the sons of Elizapha, Shimri, and Gel, and the sons of Ashab, Zechariah, and Mattaniah, and of the sons of Heman, Jehal, and Shemiah, and the sons of Jeduthun, Shemaiah, and Ezrael, Ezrael, and
Verse 15.
they gathered their brethren and sacrificed themselves and came according
Sanctified.
my fault, Salakia, and they gathered their brethren and sanctified themselves and came according to the commandment of the king by the words of Yah to cleanse the house of Yah.
All right. They came together to cleanse and sanctify themselves by the commandment of who? The king. Who was the king? King Hezekiah. And he sent this commandment by the words of the Almighty for them to sanctify themselves, family. This is King Hezekiah doing this. Verse 16.
And the priest went into the inner part of the house of the Lord and cleansed it, and brought out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of the Lord into the court of the house of the Lord. And the Levites took it and carried it out abroad into the brook Kindron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of Yah. So they sanctified the house of Yah in 8 days, and in the 16th day of the first month they made an end.
All right. So when they sanctified it, they set it apart. That's what Aaron would do to the priests. They had to do that for be presented to the congregation on the 8th day. That's why it was done like that. Verse 18.
Then they went in to Hezekiah the king and said, we have cleansed all the house of the Lord and the altar of burnt offering with all the vessels thereof, and the showbread table with all the vessels thereof. Moreover,
all right. So what they did was they consecrated the temple. See, they followed instituted the law of consecration when they cleansed the temple. This was under the directive of King Hezekiah, family. Keep reading.
Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified. And behold, there are before the altar of the Lord.
All right, so King Ahaz was King Hezekiah's father. Although Isaiah told Ahaz to ask for a son, Ahaz wasn't an upright king, but he was going to bear a son that was going to be upright. And his son came in and cleansed everything. He knew how to choose righteousness and eschew evil and wickedness. Verse 20.
Then Hezekiah the king rose early and gathered the rulers of the city and went up to the house of the Lord. And they brought 7 bullocks, 7 rams, 7 lambs, and 7 he goats for a sin offering for the kingdom and for the sanctuary and for Judah. And he commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of the Lord.
Now, who gave that command? King Hezekiah, family. What was he doing? Cleansing the priesthood, cleansing the temple, setting the nation back in order. Verse 22.
So they killed the bullocks, and the priest received the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. Likewise, when they had killed the rams, they sprinkled the blood upon the altar They killed also the lambs, and they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. And they brought forth he goats for the sin offering before the king and the congregation, and they laid their hands upon them, and the priest killed them, and they made reconciliation with their blood upon the altar, and make an atonement for all Israel. Let me say that again, and made atonement for all Israel. For the king commanded that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Israel.
Now, who caused that to happen?
Hezekiah.
King Hezekiah. He was cleansing the nation, family. Keep going.
And he set the Levites in the house of the Lord with cherubims, cymbals, my fault, with psalteries, which is like the people who sing, and then with harps.
Psalteries. That's the instruments that they made.
With the harps, and they make the music and stuff. But unto the Lord. But I know what you mean. According to the commandment of Dawid, which is in Psalms, right? Isn't that why he wrote Psalms? Or some of it, not all of it, but most of it. But yeah. And then it says, Salakia. And it says, according to the commandments of Dawid and of Gad, the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet, for so was the commandment of Yah by his prophets. And the Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets. And Hezekiah commanded to offer the burnt offering upon the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the song of the Lord began also with the trumpets and with the instruments ordained by King David of Israel.
So King Hezekiah repurposed the nation back to its proper order. Keep going.
Verse 28, and all the congregation worshiped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded, and all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. And when they had made an end of offering, the king and all that were present with him bowed themselves and worshiped. Moreover, Hezekiah, the king, and the princes commanded the Levites to sing praise unto Yah with the words of David and Asaph. Those are the Psalms. Those are like the actual Psalms, like they were singing. Okay. Or the hymns, whatever you want to say. And the seers, and they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshiped. And Hezekiah answered and said, Now ye have consecrated yourselves unto the Lord. Come near and bring sacrifices and thanks offerings, Salakia, into the house of the Lord. And the congregation brought in sacrifices and thank offerings, and as many as were of a free heart burnt offerings.
All right, so the nation was consecrated. Yahudah was consecrated. The temple was consecrated. The priests were consecrated. This is what is meant by EMMANUEL. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is going to be given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. This is what Hezekiah was doing, family. This is what King Hezekiah was doing, placing the nation back in order. Had nothing to do with what we fantasize about or romanticize about in relation to something that's told to us that's supposed to save us in some kind of future. This was all talking about the acts of King Hezekiah, nothing more, nothing less. Verse 32.
And the number of the burnt offerings which the congregation brought was 70 bullocks, and 100 rams, and 200 lambs. All these were for a burnt offering to the Lord. And the consecrated things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep, but the priests were too few, so that they could not flay all the burnt offerings, wherefore their brethren, the Levites, did help them till the work was ended, and until the other priests had sanctified themselves, for the Levites were more upright in heart to sanctify themselves than the priests. And also the burnt offering were in abundance, with the fat of the peace offerings and the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the service of the house of the Lord was set in order. And Hezekiah rejoiced in all the people that God had prepared the people, for the thing was done suddenly.
Hallelujah. All praise be to the Almighty. So at this point in time, we should know, we should see that King Hezekiah was the one that was brought forth as a child born of a virgin. He was brought forth as to bring forth Emmanuel upon the nation, bring forth Yah with us back to the nation, for the nation could not be of Emmanuel when it was dirty. So therefore, before King Hezekiah did that under his father, it was under turmoil. They were under turmoil during that time. So, now we see how King Hezekiah was reinstituting all these things to get the nation back in order. That's the duty of a king, family. That's the duty of a king. The king leads by example. He leads from the front. He don't lead trying to co-sign with everybody else. He leads from the front. And leading from the front means that you as a king are not required to take upon the concepts of everybody else, but you supposed to be leading based upon the order that the Almighty set upon you to lead with. All praise. And that's the difference between self-appointed kings and one that the Almighty appoints. And family, this concludes this particular lesson as we part 3, speaking about Emmanuel, King Hezekiah, and the sign given by Isaiah the prophet. It was a pleasure to do this and bring this forth. Before we close out, any words from my beloved sisters, Earth Healing Angel and Ahabiyah, Barak?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Elder, for bringing this forward. Looking at this lesson now, um, from the, like you said, like from historically, not like from a religious aspect, you really, your eyes are open to seeing so much more, and so much was done. And just watching King Hezekiah put things back in order and bringing things back in order, that was beautiful to see. And that's now what we as a nation need to come back to start getting ourselves as one back in order under Yah.
Hallelujah. All praise. Thank you, beloved sister. All praise. And Earth Healing Angel, did you have anything to say?
Yes. I always feel like I've had a 10-course meal when I come to your lessons. All praises to the Most High. It's I call it like the 10-course or 5-course kosher meal. It's just so enriching, and no one has never broken it down.
Yes.
Like this, what I've heard, to really get the full understanding of it, because we've been so indoctrinated in the idolatry we came out of. And thank you for your service to Yah and putting in this work. We're growing, and we thank Yah for bringing in the tribe, the people, who he has ordained in this time to sit and feast. So thank you. Many barakas.
Hallelujah. All praise and thank you. Thank you. And our beloved brother Joshua, you have any final words you want to say?
First off, I want to say all praise to the Most High. I want to give honor to you, Elder, because I mean, you told me to get on this panel and and chop it up with you. And we're gonna continue doing it. I consider this an honor and a privilege, for me to even, do so in that manner, and how you broke it down and how we had to, navigate through it and how you guided me, to read these scriptures. And I appreciate it. Surely appreciate it, Elder. What's so funny? Just before I got on the panel, I was on some other brother's channel, man. Shout out to the brother Real Talk. He was talking the same thing. That's weird. I ain't gonna say it's weird. That's y'all put it in place. It is what it is. He put it in place for me to see this. Let's talk about the Levitical priesthood. I mean, and like how like everybody said that. Well, we don't. How Christians talk. They say, well, we don't need that no more, man. We got that guy. Ha ha ha. They bring that, but I mean, but this was the actual order. You showed the actual order that the king commanded, and that he put in place. And in its order, the Levites had to go through the procedures to cleanse all of Israel. Who's with us, right? Yah's with us, right?
Yah's with us
within ourselves. But it's a process. It's like a chain of commands. Like you have, like you said, the king, then you got the priest, then you got, like all the people that, that come in, with the offerings, and they cleanse the whole place, the whole actual, the house of the Lord. But we ain't got that right now. Because people want to be, like I said, people they're so quick to defend this guy, and so prideful, they don't want to, they don't want to take into consideration that we messed up.
Absolutely. All praises, all praises. That's why I said earlier, a lot of people are self-appointed. And you can tell a self-appointed leader because they act and they govern themselves accordingly. But those are the ones the Almighty bring forth will speak and speak according to the will of Yah with humility, but also with the voice of authority that the Almighty overshadowed them with.
Right.
And in this present time today, family, we got to be cleaned up. How can we be cleaned up if we still walking in the name and convention of our oppressor?
Right.
How can we be Yasharallah and you still carrying the name of your slave masters, the name of those that you've been answering to? It's time for you to awaken. It's time for you to become what you have spoken by mouth, but now you got to put action behind it. It's time for you to go and declare on the record who you are as a nation of Yasharallah. Cause your oppressor and your enemy to call you by the name that the Almighty gave for salvation upon his people. If you're going to be that nation, it's time to declare it. It's time to put the blood of the Lamb over the doorpost, which is the name of salvation the Almighty gave you. And as the scripture said, as we read today, when you do that, EMMANUEL, then you can claim EMMANUEL at that point in time. Until then, you can't claim that because y'all don't sit in the presence of wickedness like that. We've seen that all the way around. That's why King Hezekiah called forth the priests to cleanse the temple, the tabernacle, the priesthood, themselves, and the tribe of Yahudah all the way around. It's time for us to witness and do the same thing, family. All praise be to the Most High. And with that said, family, we will have this coming Sunday, we will have Let the Truth Be Told on Malak's Corner. You'll see that notification coming forth within the next few days. And we'll be back here on next Tuesday to discuss another pivotal point in reference to the scriptures. And as I said before, much love to everybody. We're glad y'all all came on. And we're going to be back again. And until next time, may the Almighty keep you. Continue to meditate. Spend time with yourself and making that connection with the Almighty. So I'll see you next time. Shalom.